All right, we're going to title this Group Water Notes. And this is going to be, hopefully, the last notes we'll take for fresh water. And we're going to go through this pretty quickly. All right. Nope. Flooding, not flooding, flooding, not flooding. All right, so the first one we had was flooding. Which group was that?
D.
Y'all's group? Okay. So I don't want you to write down necessarily everything that they wrote down on their paper. We're gonna, a lot of y'all put like a lot of information, which is good, but we're just gonna sum it up a little bit so you don't have to do all that writing. So flooding, they put that it can have an effect on the health of wildlife. Large quantities can affect many things, and floods can cause deadly accidents, which makes sense. We know that whole turn around, don't drive through flooding. So, flooding, we're going to say can be dangerous, but I want to add something to that. Causes increased, not turbidity. How does it cause increased turbidity?
Because like all the like trash and stuff that's on the side of the road can get into it and cause things.
So trash can get into it, but what else? What happens when it floods an area that doesn't have like a lot of trees and stuff? What washes into the water? Dirt, soil. Even though it's just dirt, it's considered a contaminant if it's not supposed to be in the water. So if you increase the turbidity of the water, that's going to cause a lot of issues. And we know that we don't like to drink water with a high turbidity. We want zero. We want clear water. Oof, brush. All right. What are ways that water can get low DO or dissolved oxygen levels? So we're going to title this Low DO. All right. So ways that low dissolved oxygen can happen. They have diffusion and aeration. So we can say decreased, we'll say diffusion. And we talked about that in our notes. That's how one way that dissolved oxygen gets in the water is the oxygen naturally permeates the oxygen naturally permeates the water surface. So if that is decreased, then you're going to have lower dissolved oxygen. Photosynthesis. So if your photosynthesis is down, if you don't have as many plants doing photosynthesis, they're not creating as much oxygen, so there's less oxygen in the water. Respiration. This time we're increasing respiration. What is respiration? What do you think of when you hear respiration? Like breathing. And what do we breathe out? Carbon dioxide. What do we take in? Oxygen. So when we take the oxygen for respiration, we breathe out carbon dioxide, that's used up the oxygen. Other organisms do that, even if they don't have lungs. They take in oxygen, and then the waste is carbon dioxide. So if you have more organisms having more respiration, or the exchange of oxygen for carbon dioxide, that lowers your oxygen levels. Decomposition. The process of decomposition uses up a lot of oxygen. So if you have a lot of decomposition, your oxygen levels are lowered. And the last one, the warmer the water is, the less dissolved oxygen is. So warmer water. Increased temperature decreases dissolved oxygen is what we call the inverse relationship. Have y'all ever heard that before in math? An inverse relationship is when one variable increases, it makes the other one decrease. I used the example last night. I don't know why I thought of this, but I was looking. So I hate folding laundry. Hate it. So I have a pile of clean laundry in my room, and I have a pile of dirty laundry. And I'm like, it's like an inverse relationship. As my dirty laundry increases, my clean laundry decreases. Same thing. As one goes up, the other goes down. Alrighty. Algae blooms. I know y'all have seen this term a few times already. Now we're going to talk about really what it is. Algae blooms is when there is an accumulation in freshwater or marine water systems. That means that, let's say, a large increase of algae in water. Having some algae is normal, but when you have a bunch of it at one time, then that's an issue. So one thing that group had researched, and you guys have probably heard of, have you heard of the red tide? Not like roll tide, like red tide. It's when you have an algae bloom, a specific red algae, especially in ocean water, and periodically you'll have a bloom of these, and they'll say you can't go swim in the water, it can be toxic, and it kills a lot of marine life as it travels. So it can be a really big deal. So effects of algae bloom can be toxic, disrupt ecosystems, and occur with increased plant nutrients. And what are our plant nutrients that we don't like to have in the water? What's one of them that y'all tested for? Nitrates. What's the other? The other chemistry test. What's the other drop test you did? Phosphates. So nitrates and phosphates. You have a lot of that in the water. It causes an algae bloom. It can suffocate the other life forms in the water. It can be toxic, so it can cause a lot of issues. We're gonna make it. All right, too much nitrates in a farm. I will say nitrate pollution from farms and lawns. It says it can restrict oxygen in the bloodstream, so it can be toxic. We'll sum that up and say toxic to many organisms. Too much plant growth. We just talked about how that can cause algae blooms. Let's say, how do I say this? We'll say disrupts dissolved oxygen levels, clog waterways. Y'all have got nitrates down pretty well. This is erosion say increased erosion. Water flows downhill. So what kind of water do we call it when it flows downhill? Runoff. Comes from increased runoff. Transports dirt and other contaminants. Over time, water erosion create canyons, happens over millions of years. Too much cause problems with the environment, falling tree, flooding forest. Soil erosion causing those problems. Okay, so that's not how you spell contaminants. There we go, not contaminates. We'll say increased turbidity of water. Turbidity, we'll say increased turbidity and / contaminants. That's not how you spell contaminants. Okay, so we'll stop there, and then